Welcome back to Make the Music, and today we have another mixing tip tutorial video here, and we're going to be going over vocals. And this is what I call the Dan Reynolds or the Imagine Dragons vocal mixing strategy or vocal mixing effect. You'll notice with Imagine Dragons, a lot of their vocals, it's very dynamic, but then it's also incredibly compressed, so you get that upfront vocal sound. You always hear the vocal even when a bunch of instruments are playing and the mix is just completely overblown. So in this case, we want to think about that sound where we have these verses that are really quiet and small. The vocal might be quiet. How do we make sure that that vocal's up front? And then when it gets louder with a bunch of gang vocals and instruments, how do we keep that vocal up front but not over compress and completely kill the life? And so this is the strategy I'm going to be going over here. So I have this song here. There's a quiet vocal in the first verse. It sounds like this.
Woke up with your demons in my head, the topic always found its way to you instead.
But by the time we get to this final chorus, there's a lot going on, and so it sounds like this.
Reflections don't lie, I've been the villain this whole time. Reflections don't lie, I've been the villain this whole. Reflections don't lie, I've been the.
So how do we get all those layers to work together, and then how do we get that verse vocal to also sound full even when it's by itself and there's not a lot of music going on? So here's my vocal chain here. I have this set up so it's all bus to a vocals bus, and then each of these vocals also has some individual processing on it right here. So this main vocal here,
Woke up with your demons in my head, the topic.
You notice with the Imagine Dragons stuff, there's typically this sort of almost plate, but then also bigger reverb sound. I'm using the Valhalla Supermassive for that, and that just adds some dimension to this vocal here.
Woke up with your demons in my head, the topic always found its way to you instead.
Immediately it sounds wider there, and then a big part of this sound is multiple layers of compression. So I have a stock Reaper compressor here. These are the settings.
Woke up with your demons in my head, the topic.
Notice it's not doing a lot in the verses.
Always thought myself as a hero.
And as the vocals are getting louder, that's really starting to kick in.
Reflections don't lie, I've been the villain this whole time.
I've also got virtual mix rack going here, and this is just there's a little bit of gate on, and then I'm adding just a bit of EQ, rolling off the lows, a little bit of the dark compressor because the mic was just a little too bright for me, and then more layers of compression. I've got the blue model here, the 1176, and then the LA2A on the compressed setting, but this is a really aggressive compressor here.
Reflections don't lie, I've been the villain this whole time. Reflections don't lie, I've been the villain this whole.
So you can see that working there. A key with getting your vocal to sound very compressed and up front, but not sounding, it gets to a point where if you're using one compressor, it's really going to blow out that one compressor, and it's not going to do a good job of 30 dB of gain reduction with one compressor. But if you can average it out across multiple compressors and limiters, it's going to be a much smoother tone in the end, and that's what we're doing here with this one. We're going to look at the bus here. There's a bit of EQ rolling off the lows there to keep it present. We have another compressor here.
Reflections don't lie, I've been the villain this whole time.
And this one's doing a lot of work when there's a lot of gang vocals here. I mean, you can see there's quite a few vocal tracks here at this last chorus. During the verses, not doing quite, or the pre-choruses, not quite doing as much.
I've been the villain this whole time. Reflections don't.
Still a decent amount there. Some stock Reaper saturation there. And then when you're compressing a vocal this much in a dynamic track, you're going to need de-essing, or those S's are going to tear someone's head off with that much compression. So I have the Eosis de-esser here. Quite a healthy amount of de-essing.
I've been the villain this whole time. Reflect.
If we take that off,
I've been the villain this whole time.
Those S's can get pretty aggressive there. So I'm actually going to turn off both buses. You can hear the main vocal.
I've been the villain this whole time. Reflections don't lie. I've been the villain. I've been the villain this whole time. Reflect.
See how much more present that is. There's even more attack to it. And then here's really the big key to that Imagine Dragons vocal sound. And you can hear it, especially on their latest record. I nailed the reverb sound. There's definitely some form of a limiter on those vocals. When there's so many vocal stacks, you're going to need a limiter to keep everything super present. I have the release set to 0.25, and a limiter just gives you a lot of control when it comes to mixing vocals, especially in a pop mix like this, where you really just want to pin the level of that vocal. threshold set to -4.1. I've got the ceiling at -4.6.
Reflections don't lie. I've been the villain this whole time. Reflections don't lie. I've been the villain this whole. Reflections don't.
Now, if you pin the threshold too much, let's try that.
Reflections don't lie. I've been the villain this whole time. Reflections don't.
You start to kill the life a little bit out of those vocals. So you just need to be careful, and you really just want to kiss this vocal with this limiter, but really it's going to help reel it in with that sound there. So I'm going to take all the effects off, play the track, and then put all the effects back on so you can really hear what we're doing in this one.
Always thought myself as a hero, the good guy. Always did myself what is best and what is right. But as I look into my own eyes,
let me go to a chorus.
Reflections don't lie. I've been the villain this whole time. Reflections don't lie. I've been the villain this whole. Reflections don't lie. I've been the villain this whole time. Reflections don't lie. I've been the villain this whole time.
So that's my Imagine Dragons vocal mixing tip there. First off, starting with a little bit of EQ, then multiple layers of compression on the vocal and the bus. Finally capping it off with that de-esser to reel in those hard S's and T's. Then the limiter just to pin that vocal to the spot that you want it in the mix. And then finally adding a little bit of that room reverb sound to really make it sound big and give it that arena rock feel. Those are my mixing tips there. Leave a comment down below. What's your tips for mixing these sort of aggressive pop vocals? Do you have any comments about what my mixing tips were? If you do, leave it in a comment down below. Please like and subscribe to see more tips like this, and I'll see you guys in the next video.